Hi there everybody and welcome back to another very special video. Today I would actually like to tell all of you guys my worst financial mistakes that I have done in my early 20s to now, which currently I am at 26 years old. So I'm going to tell you guys my top 5 worst financial mistakes that I've personally done within this time frame and things that I would have preferred to have done instead of doing this. Now, obviously, full disclaimer, this is just my opinion and this is based off of my experience. You guys might be different, you guys might disagree on some of these. But again, this is coming from my personal experience and just basically from what I believe would have been the outcome if I would have done things differently. So with that said, let's get started with, of course, number 5. Number 5, guys, is actually not being frugal enough. We are starting off with one that a lot of people tend to look down upon. It can be very disheartening watching your friends go out and spend money, and sometimes they may look down at you for doing things that might seem essentially unorthodox. For example, using store bags. I use store bags as like trash bags just because it's like I don't feel like wasting money on garbage bags. To me, that's ridiculous, at least for now, right? Living alone, mainly alone, girlfriend comes sometimes over, but mainly I live alone, so why do I need to buy trash bags, right? Also, unplugging all outlets. I have a rule in my apartment that I would only like to have one light on in the apartment at all times, and if you're not using something, unplug it. The only thing that's staying plugged in is obviously the refrigerator and the Wi-Fi. Aside from that, everything is unplugged. And another one, for example, which is something that I don't necessarily do that often anymore, but going out and not spending money on things that aren't necessities. For me personally, I've actually outgrown that last one. However, I wasn't always like that, right? For the first couple of years in my early 20s, I actually found myself spending money on things I clearly didn't need, like buying snacks that weren't necessary or buying expensive coffees instead of using like the coffee grounds and then making it myself, essentially paying an extra $10 for something that takes like 15 minutes to do. After I stopped doing all that stuff and buying things that I just didn't need, after doing so and becoming more frugal, I actually found that my savings actually went up. Now to number 4, saving cash. Guys, this one is one that really goes against what we are taught ever since that we were kids. I don't know about all of you guys, but for me, my parents always taught me to save, and that saving is one of 2 ways to become wealthy. But let's face it, this could not be farther away from the truth. Saving is by far one of the best ways to lose money by the simple fact of inflation. As making this video, inflation is around 8.6% for the CPI, the highest since 1980, guys, and it is not expecting to come down. At least I personally think it's not going to come down. For the longest time in my early 20s, all I did was save cash, save cash, save cash. I gotta save my checking account. I just gotta save money. And this depleted my buying power just because of the fact that inflation was still a thing, right? If I would have invested this money, it would have grown instead of just sitting there in the bank, just not doing anything. Sure, the number would have just kept going higher and higher and higher, but the amount of stuff that money could buy would have depleted at around 2.5% year over year back then, as opposed to if I would have invested it. While today I am currently saving, and I'm putting that in air quotes, it's not necessarily saving because I'm actually saving for a specific reason to hopefully put down a good down payment on a future house. Essentially, if you're going to save for a big purchase, not save just because you want to have money in the bank account. Now coming to number 3, only having one income. This is by far a huge mistake that not a lot of people tend to actually wrap their heads around. Because as I said before in my number 4 mistake, my parents taught me that saving is one of 2 ways to become wealthy. The second being is having a steady income. Go to school, graduate, have a well or decent paying job, do this job for essentially 40 plus years until retirement at around 65, and then you retire. The problem is that one income no longer seals the deal. You need 2 or 3, not only because things are getting more expensive, as I just said, because of inflation, but also security. If you only have one income and you end up getting fired or laid off, you are dead in the water right there. Well, if you have 1 or 2 more incomes on top of that one from your 9 to 5 job, if this were to happen, if you were to get laid off or you were to get fired, the stress would be a lot less because you know you have other money coming in. Even though it may not be a lot, it might still hold you off a little bit longer to find a new job than if you either have no second or third income at all. Now, how does this currently apply to me? Well, originally I thought that just having one job, my engineering job, would suffice. However, currently, guys, I actually have two incomes. My 9-to-5 job, which is my engineering job, and my dividend income, which if you guys haven't seen my video of me showing you guys my dividends for the month of June, check it out because it is by far the highest yet. And by the way, the one in September is going to be significantly higher than the one in June. So be on the lookout for that video and make sure to check out that dividend income video that I just posted out yesterday. So my 9-to-5 is my main income, my dividend income is my passive income, and just by me making this video and this channel, the hopes is I will eventually have enough of a support from you guys through subscriptions and of course through interaction in the chat and just time watched that hopefully one day I can actually get monetized through YouTube, giving me 3 incomes. Even though the YouTube income isn't going to be a lot starting off, it'll still be consistent enough that I'm going to count it as a 3rd income. And then eventually, by the time I'm 30, I would eventually like to buy a rental property and rent that out, make passive money through rents. And my final income that I really do hope to make is to start a chip manufacturing company. But that is essentially, guys, my plan as to how I would like to have more than one income. And, unfortunately, this old thinking of just have one job, stay there for 50 years, and then that's pretty much it, you can retire from that, no longer works. That's why for the beginning of my early years, I had this mentality of, oh, just have one income is fine, where now I'm like, no, I need to have 2, 3, 4, 5 incomes on top of my 9-to-5 job. Now we're coming into the number 2 spot. And now, this is one that a lot of young people, guys, mainly young people, fall trap to. And this is buying a new car. Now, as I said, a lot of young people get trapped with this one, especially if you just finished college and you just got your first real paying job, like your first real chunky, more than $50,000 a year job. You kind of fall into the mindset of, oh, I want a new car. I want a new car. And I was at fault for this too, because I fell for this. When you're younger, you think you're like the king of the world. And you buy a new car, and it may feel good for the first couple months or so, but it is essentially a money pit. Cars are essentially a money pit, especially new cars are the biggest scams out there, simply by the fact that if you were to buy a car that is 1 year old, same exact car, just 1 year older, the price drops by about half in comparison to the new one, and that year-old car probably has no underlying difference aside from a couple miles extra that was driven on it. When I graduated college and got my first engineering job and came to Pennsylvania, I went out and bought a brand new car worth $28,000 financed. This was adding an extra $500 a month in expenses. And luckily, I did some math and noticed that after 4 years of this financing, because the financing was set for 4 years, it would have added nearly $10,000 on top of that $28,000 in just interest alone. So because I noticed that, I decided to pay off the difference that was left and paid off a whopping $21,000 to completely pay off that car. Now luckily, I did this fairly quick and I didn't wait the 4 years. But if I would have invested that $21,000 that I put in to pay off the whole entire car, instead of putting it towards the car, my investments would be significantly higher than what I have them today. And before we head over to number 1, guys, let me just all remind you to, of course, like, subscribe, comment. It really does help. Thank you so much for the support so far. And now, guys, coming into number 1. And this is by far going to be the most controversial out of all the ones that I have said so far. Because, well, there's a stigma when it comes to this one that people think that you have to do it. And I've noticed that you really don't have to do it. And that one is going to college. This is what our parents tell us to do, and we are even told this by our teachers. We're told, unless you want to work at Starbucks making minimum wage for the rest of your life, you need to go to college. And this is by far, unfortunately, a big lie. Because from an investment perspective, college should be a great thing. But what kind of good investment, and good in air quotes, is getting yourself in debt by several tens of thousands of dollars, then adding on top of that a huge interest rate to that student loan that most people will never be able to pay back. I mean, the student debt bubble is huge, and the fact that it exists really does show that this is a big problem, right? You have several people that want the government to essentially wipe off all student debt because they just can't pay it back. And on top of this, guys, when you go to college, you are losing the most valuable asset, and that is time. You're essentially losing 4 years where you could have taken that money and you could have put it into investing in stocks or in real estate and growing your wealth while you have zero debt. Then you will essentially be way better off than the person that just came out of college having tens of thousands of dollars of debt and having no assets to their name. And in my personal opinion, college from a financial standpoint was a waste of time. And this is coming from the guys that did a bachelor's in chemical engineering. And the reason why I'm saying it's a waste of time, because if I would have implemented this same strategy of dividend passive income investing back then, I would be sitting very, very pretty right now. And I'll give you an example. Microsoft, when I was in college, was at around $80 per share. So let's say if I would have saved up $10,000 working at Starbucks and I would have invested it into Microsoft at around the $80 mark per share. If I would have taken that $10,000, that would have bought me 125 shares of Microsoft. Now, forward to today, at the peak of Microsoft, at around what, $260 per share, that would mean, guys, that my total investment of Microsoft, that would mean that my initial investment of $10,000 would be up $22,500 alone in Microsoft, not including dividends. Think about that. And that's also not taking into account that maybe I would have learned my lesson and invested more when the price fell down a little bit. And also maybe I would have invested into other companies like Apple or a real estate or a REIT company or something like that, that would have really helped that out along the way. By the same time that somebody would have just graduated college, they would have had tens of thousands of dollars in debt and not have a single asset to their name, while somebody who didn't go to college and did something as simple as put in $10,000 into Microsoft, they would have a total balance of Microsoft at around $32,000. That's absolutely insane. And then also, maybe that person could have also put in some money into a real estate rental property and made passive income through rents as well. But then again, these are just two examples, guys. And all in all, college by far was the worst mistake that I made so far financially. Now, even though it was financially bad, it was still positive in several other ways, because that's where I met majority of the people I still talk with, right? The guy that I have brought in a couple times here on the channel to talk about technical analysis, I met him in college. So if I would have never been to college, I would have never met him, right? But from a financial standpoint, it really did hurt me a lot. But that pretty much does it, guys. That's essentially my top 5 worst financial mistakes that I have made in my early to mid 20s. So if you guys agree, just tell me down in the comment section. If you don't agree, tell me why in the comment section. I'm pretty certain that a lot of people will disagree with some, especially the college one. But nonetheless, this is just my opinion. And honestly, I personally believe that if I would have implemented this dividend strategy much earlier, then I probably would be a lot better off, and this number that you guys see right here would be a lot higher. That pretty much does it for this video. Like if you like, comment, subscribe. You guys can follow me on my new tech sites. All links in the description below. So with that said, peace out. Have a wonderful 4th of July, and I will see you all in the next video.